Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe, and welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Kristy Jansen.
And I'm Summers Kristy.
And we're part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to make it one focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, road trip-worthy podcast. Today is Tuesday, the 5th of January, 2021. Well, Kristy, you know how I say that I don't take my Christmas decorations down until January 6th?
Uh-huh.
I had to this year. I had to take them down early because...
Why?
Because I'm going to be working from the road for the next 2 weeks in an RV with my children.
And did you have to bring your Christmas vacation, your Christmas ornaments with you, or you just want to make sure?
Exactly. And I had to decorate the RV with Christmas. Now, you know what? So family tradition for us is that on January 6th, we actually give gifts, just like a small gift, a small token. It's just kind of an old storytelling part of the Christian holiday of Christmas that it's Epiphany. It's the day the wise men showed up. And so I usually just keep our decorations up. But we got over the holiday, and we didn't talk about this yesterday, but we got some crazy sort of directional shifting news that happened for our family. Unfortunately, the lovely woman who helps me take care of Brennan did test positive for COVID-19, and her whole family tested positive. And so we are going to be continuing without childcare for at least another month. So we decided to, instead of just working as disastrously ineffectively as you and Amelia and the whole team at the Optimist Daily know I have been for the last 2 weeks, instead to be a little productive and go do some work. We have some business ventures that we are looking at and potentially planning a move to Austin, Texas. So we are going on the road, all 5 of us in an RV as a weird little quarantining traveling RV pod. We have all tested negative and are fortunately not COVID positive. But yeah, so I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but you and Amelia are going to get some road stories from the Summers McKay fam.
All right. Yeah, it's going to be some fun stuff. And I think you may or may not be able to do a full pod setup in the remote RV. So it might be we're going to be talking to you from your cell phone from someplace. Right. But that'll be fun. Right. It'll be like
we did that interview with one of the soil experts.
Yeah.
Yep, out in the middle of nowhere on his earbuds. So
yeah. I think it'll be great. It'll be so fun, Summers. I'll be living vicariously through you as you course through the country. And it's a little scary time because of the high incidence of COVID positivity around the country. But I know you're going to be keeping yourselves as safe as you can be. And what an adventure.
Yeah, in a weird way, this is actually, we're going to be, we're definitely going to be closer together and in tighter quarters and keeping ourselves more quarantined than perhaps we even would in our own home. But yeah, it's going to be an adventure. Yeah. People live in tiny homes.
They do. I was going to say that it reminds me of one of the stories on our headlines today.
Mm-hmm. You go ahead and take the lead on this one.
I'll read the headline and then let's talk about it. But the headline reads, IKEA's new tiny home aims to make the housing industry more eco-friendly.
So obviously, as I looked at this one this morning, it made me smile and laugh because my kitchen right now is full of, those grocery packing boxes of exactly what we're going to move from our kitchen into the RV this evening, and trying to figure out how to make it hospitable and lovely in basically downsizing for a few weeks. And what I love about this is that IKEA has taken the idea of smaller housing, knowing that they're more sustainable and that it is a movement that's gained increasing traction lately. And then they've layered on putting sustainable products into the homes. So using manufacturing for a compostable toilets and recycled, reused wood. So it's pretty exciting. You've taken the tour. What do you see?
Oh, it's a beautiful little home. I mean, it is quite small. It's 187 square feet, which is completely doable, but it requires a different way of thinking about space and possessions. Definitely the minimalist idea is when you have such small space, you realize you can do without a lot of the things that we're used to doing with. But this one is quite pretty, and it uses natural textures and it uses wood. The cupboards are made from recycled plastic, but it's really efficient in how it uses the space. There's a hot plate that you can actually hang up on the side of the wall when you're not using it. There's a bed, which is a storage bed, so you can store things underneath that bed. As you mentioned, the toilet is compostable, so it doesn't take a lot of water. There are solar panels on the roof, so you can actually use this and go off grid. The whole idea is to design something which inspires people to think about eco-friendly housing. The other thing that's interesting is by using the modular design in prefabricated panels, the manufacturing process kind of cuts down on the wastefulness compared to conventional on-site construction. So you don't cut the wood there, you cut it in a factory, and you're designing it in advance so that you can kind of plug and play, put it all together in a warehouse, and then it's ready
far less waste.
A lot less waste and a lot faster. And if we got over our aversion to modular homes as a society, we could build more homes and roll them out quicker in more sustainable kinds of ways. But, that kind of has a negative cachet to it. But this very pretty little road-worthy home, which is like, you can order it. Summers, you went online to see if you could actually order it, and you can.
You can. Yep. It's about $47,000 for the actual home. So,
yeah. And you have to drive, you can drive it around. Anyway, it's just this, it's a thought project, and it's an example of a way to inspire this kind of thinking in our building, in our homes. And I like it.
Do they recommend it for a family of 5?
Probably not, because there's one bed. But you can do other tiny homes. What's one of my favorite kinds of shows to binge is the Tiny Home Nation.
Right.
Or I have a YouTube channel. This New Zealand guy that I watch, he's always looking around and looking at tiny homes. I guess maybe because I grew up on a boat where space was very limited. I love the efficiency of space in these kinds of mobile home constructions. And you're about to take your family of 5 in a house. The thing you have to get your kids to really, really do, as I know from growing up on the boat, everything, once you're done with it, you put it away. Everything has to have a place. You can't leave anything around because it really, really quickly feels so cluttered. The good thing about a tiny space, though, is it really quickly cleans up because there's not much space to clean, right? So you can turn it around in a half hour.
That's one of the things that I'm a little stressed about, because I am extremely tidy and toys all go back exactly where they belong, and everything is contained. And 2 of the 4 grown people are not quite so contained in their organization. And so we'll figure it out.
We'll work it contained
in their organization strategy. This is my way of being generous and optimistic about the adventure ahead. Well, and I'm sure a lot of you guys listening have done RV trips, and I know that this is a wonderful adventure. So I don't mean to be negative.
And
it's just a lot that we didn't know 3 days ago we were going to be doing this.
It is.
So,
but the other thing that's nice about these kind of living is that the private space is small, but then the public space, the outside, the natural space, really becomes a part of your house. And
which is great in the middle of winter.
Oh, that's true. That's a problem. But
we got warm clothes. We're fine.
As we've read on the Optimist Daily, even in the middle of winter, you can really enjoy being outside.
Right. I need to read those stories about all the Nordic people who truly love yelling at the trees in the forest in the winter.
Well,
our other story, speaking of great expansive outdoor spaces.
Expanding outdoor spaces and natural materials, right?
So this headline reads, "Why Japanese Scientists Are Developing Satellites Made of Wood." And I will just cue this up, as last night as I was sitting outside looking at the sky with my baby girl, a satellite went over, and I was actually able to point it out, and she tracked it, and she said something that sounded like satellite. So, Kristy, what's up with this story today?
This one's interesting, and I chose this one because space junk is one of those things which really does worry me. If you think about it, there's about 6,000 satellites that are currently circling the Earth, according to the World Economic Forum, and only about 40% of them are right now operational. So that means 60% of them are just junk. They're just flying around and super fast. And if you ever watched one of those science fiction movies like Gravity or the one that's on Netflix right now with George Clooney, space junk is a real problem when you have a space station or a spaceship or anything flying around out there, because it travels at really, really high velocity. Yeah. And it's just like driving through a bunch of broken glass and broken other things. Anyway, it can create some problems for other satellites as they're up there. Right. And this is something that experts
as well as George Clooney and Sandra
and Sandra Bullock and whoever else is flying around and, orbiting our planet, because there's all this junk up there, right? So in order to think about ways to start diminishing that junk, there's a lot of space scientists and other engineers have been thinking about this. And there's a new partnership between a Japanese company and Kyoto University that seeks to develop what could be the world's first satellite that is made out of wood. And the idea is to have this in orbit by around 2023. So that's not very long. And compared to conventional space technologies, a wooden satellite would burn up. Once it hits the atmosphere, it would just burn up without releasing little bits of plastic and metal back out into the Earth orbit, and without also releasing those harmful substances into the atmosphere or showering that debris down to the ground when it plunges back into Earth. They're working on this construction, like to come up with the new materials, wooden materials that are highly resistant to temperature changes and sunlight. There's a construction firm, Sumito Forestry, which is part of this. And I just think this is an interesting initiative. Whether or not they're going to get a flying satellite that is made out of wood. And I love the idea of using a really natural material from the Earth in space.
There's a poetry to it. There's also some logistical challenges that I'm sure need to be overcome. But
absolutely.
Like our other story, it is a thought project.
It is. But whatever they're coming up with in terms of developing these kinds of materials that are super heat resistant and also don't decay in sunlight, even sunlight outside of the Earth's atmosphere, which is what protects a lot of us from solar radiation, right? Those advances in those materials could then translate into creating more sustainable wood products that are long lasting. Maybe it's a substitute for plastics. Who knows? Yeah. So many advances technologically come from trying to engineer and develop for the most extreme environments. And then those kinds of ideas can then be brought into the regular market. And we don't know where it'll go. So I'm excited by this because I love space. And we need to find solutions to space junk.
To keep the astronauts safe, as well as the other very expensive, and very important machines that are up there rotating around our Earth.
Yeah. All of our communications are driven by these things now. So
Yep. And goodness knows I am going to need high quality satellite access. Okay, so some other headlines today on the Optimist Daily include: medical gun that fires off skin substitute is now treating patients. Setting goals for 2021. Here's how to ensure you actually achieve them. I love that one. A paralyzed man just fed himself using thought-controlled robotic hands. And you know what? That story reminds me of our robots dancing story from yesterday. If you guys haven't seen the robots from Boston
Dynamics.
Yeah, Boston Dynamics, you guys have to go see that story. It's fantastic. They look like the robots are having fun, which is simultaneously darling and terrifying. What else do we have, Kristy?
Well, there's an article about 3 ways to become more present in the work from home era, which we're all continuing to inhabit. At least we are here at the Optimist Daily. There's a fun one. This is my first click for the morning, is how to cook using your old Christmas tree.
But be careful with this. Don't just cook with any old Christmas tree. Yeah. You might die.
You gotta make sure it's not a toxic one. But if you have a spruce or a pine,
Yep.
Anyway,
and then don't cook with your artificial Christmas trees.
No,
that's not go either. Yep.
China will be opening up its massive FAST telescope, FAST telescope, to global astronomers. That's good progress in terms of international collaboration and space science. There's a article about reducing your conversation stress with these 8 communication strategies, super important, from the Gottman Institute. Boston will become the home to one of the world's greenest office buildings, again in green design, which we are big fans of here on the Optimist Daily. And that is it for today's Optimist Daily update. Thank you so much for listening. We promise to keep sharing these positive solution-based stories with ideas on how you can participate in this changing world and ensure it is changed for the good. We promise to keep covering current events with accuracy, legitimate sources, and offering you the information needed most to chart new paths for all of us.
And please consider becoming an emissary on the optimistdaily.com, and just $5 a month, or $15 or $50 if you have the funds. Support reader-funded independent journalism. Be part of the solution-changing consciousness and addressing our world's biggest challenges with a problem-solving mindset. Let's keep the Optimist Daily free to all who need it, supported by those who can.